Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SERA ECR Network videos, Conversation with Scholars. This is a special episode we do with Health Research in Education Network with Dr. Nicola Carse. Welcome, Nicola.
Hello.
So, Nicola's here representing the Health Research in Education Network. Would you like to say a little bit about the network?
Yes, I can, Hermione. Thank you. So we're the Health and Wellbeing Research and Education Network. And up until last year, we were the Physical Education Network, but we recognised that the position of physical education within a Scottish context is situated within health and wellbeing. A lot of people that were interested in the network were also researching in the area of health and wellbeing. And so we had a meeting last year and we decided to change the name of the network to broaden our scope and our appeal. So to find out more about the network, I would guide you towards the SERA website. But to give you a brief kind of overview of the aims of the network are that our aims are to provide networking, professional development and knowledge exchange opportunities for teachers, teacher educators, academics, undergraduate and postgraduate students, policymakers and other key stakeholders, all with an interest in health and wellbeing research. And then the other aim that we have is to disseminate and make accessible health and wellbeing research with a range of educational stakeholders within and beyond the Scottish context. I can tell you who our conveners are. So I am one of the conveners and I'm based at the University of Edinburgh. And the other co-convenor of the network is Shirley Gray, who is also based at University of Edinburgh, and we convene the network. If you are interested in the network, you can drop us an email and that information is on the SERA website. You'll find our email addresses there, and you can follow us on Twitter. We're at SERA HREN, at SERA HREN. So that's where you will find out more about the network. Is there anything else you want me to share about the network, Hermione, about any activities we do, or?
I think for now it is fine, because then I think these questions and activities will come back when I ask you questions about SERA 50. And now I'm going to hit you with a starter question you choose. What fruit or vegetable would you use to describe your research?
I was thinking about this and it came to my mind of a raspberry.
Raspberry?
Yes, a raspberry. Because I think that the research that I do is all interlinked together as a kind of whole fruit, but there's little individual panels and parts that make it up. So there's different bits of research that I do on different areas, but actually they all come together quite well to make this kind of nice ripe red fruit. So that's my thinking was with the raspberry.
Your research is focusing on the health and well-being, right? That's why you're involved.
So yeah, so I'm probably more into the physical education side and teacher education. And then Shirley's she's physical education and health and well-being. So there's a combination of us in terms of as two conveners. And then all of the areas that I look at in terms of physical education, teacher education, they're kind of separate, but there's always a link through them.
Just like the raspberry.
Yes, there is. So little bits, but also linked together.
Yes. So now we move to the SERA 50 questions for SERA people. So the first question is, how you met SERA? When did you join SERA? How did it happen? And why did you join SERA?
So I was working at the University of Strathclyde at the time. It probably would have been around 2012 or 13, I think. And it was actually Aileen Kennedy who told me about SERA when I was working at Strathclyde, and she was working there alongside me. And I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. And so the first conference I went to was one in Edinburgh University. that was actually where they were looking for people to go on to the executive, and it was my first conference and I offered to be part of the executive. So yeah, a bit of it in at the deep end. But Aileen had told me all about it, and she'd explained to me what SERA involved and that they were looking for people. And I thought, well, it might be a way to get to know people in researching in education in a Scottish context. So that was how I was introduced to and became part of SERA. So very quickly, I was part of the executive for SERA, and I remain part of the executive. So over 10 years now, I guess.
And during the over 10 years, you were one of the presidents, right? I recall you.
I was one of the presidents.
2020?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My presidency came during COVID lockdown. So much of what I did was online. So I had 2 conferences that I ran online because we couldn't meet in person. And a lot of our meetings went online, and then it was through my presidency that SERA Connect started, so that we could have those connections when we couldn't meet in person. So it was a bit of a strange time for my presidency, but it was also really interesting, and it really moved us forwards in terms of digitally and our digital kind of footprint for SERA. So yeah.
I think it's very important to have these SERA Connects, because even when we could make it in person, there are people that they couldn't make at this particular time, and then they feel this missing out, and there are loads of things happening. So it's important to have in-person choice, but also have resources online, just like what we're producing now.
Yes.
And so the second question I have for you is, what are the most memorable story or stories that you have had with SERA and people involved with SERA?
I think my most memorable stories are probably around conferences. And I remember the first conference and not really knowing anybody. And now there's so many people that I know at SERA, and it happens over time that you develop those kinds of friendships and getting to know people. And so now when I go to a SERA conference, I'm just super busy seeing people and catching up with people. And one year, I think it was the last time it was at UWS, I had overstretched myself and I was needing to be in 2 to 3 places at once, and it just wasn't possible. So it shows you that you know, you can go in and you start to meet people, and it is, people say it's friendly and welcoming, and but I genuinely believe that. And I've had great conversations with a range of people in a range of education contexts, and some of my favourite conversations and times have been at the early career parts of the conference, where I've been lucky enough to sit on the panel for reviewing the prizes for the early career researchers, and I just love it. I love hearing about the range of research, the diverse contexts, the diverse people that are undertaking the research, and I find that really interesting.
Yeah. So the next question going to need a little bit more imagination then, because what it would be different if you have not engaged with SERA?
I think it would have. I think I have met so many people from across the Scottish education context. I am able to point colleagues or other people towards SERA to say, oh, here, this network. Oh, are you interested? You should have a look at this network, or you should come along to the conference, or this is happening, or there's this event, or there's this SERA Connect. So I wouldn't know what I know now about the education system, and I've met the people that I've met, if I hadn't been part of SERA. So those connections of networking with people and the system has been really helpful.
I think that's also what I feel with SERA, is like it helps to, you have an overview, you have understanding of what is going around in Scottish universities and beyond. Before, you may only know your own institution, and you may not even know too much about your institution, because you're only meeting, especially for PhD researchers, you're only meeting your supervisors, and mostly you are meeting your line manager if you're being teaching assistant. But only SERA enables you to see, have an overview of like what is going on around Scotland, what are people researching, what is everyone interested on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now I'm going to ask you the fourth question is, what is the difference between today's SERA and the SERA you joined in 2012?
I think that what's happened for SERA is it has evolved over time, tried to respond to the changing times. So things like our sustainability statements and thinking about diversity statements that were there in the background but have really come to the foreground. I would say that the Scotland and the Scottish Educational Research Association is really important, that we are looking, as you said, at what's happening within the context of Scotland. But it is also very outward looking, and we really look to other country contexts. We're looking internationally, and what we're seeing, particularly through the conference, and the links that we've made to other research associations like the Nordic Educational Research Association, like the European Educational Research Association, is that we're seeing people coming from other international contexts into our context, and we are looking at what's happening and engaging in that professional dialogue. And I think that's really important, that you can't become too insular looking just at Scotland. It's like, it's understanding Scotland, but looking beyond it. And I think that encouraging and continuing to see a diversity in the people that are coming to SERA, in the research that's happening, in the people involved in that research process, you know, it is becoming more and more diverse, I would say. And I think that's a really important and good thing, that you balance that. Here's Scotland, here's who we are, here's what we do, but we're also looking outward, and we're valuing diversity and looking at and understanding other contexts.
Yeah, I would say that SERA kind of like, we organized the ESA Glasgow 2023. So last year, the theme was the value of diverse voices. And we saw like Scottish scholars and scholars from around, not just only from Europe, even from America, they come along, and to see all this, it's such a great festival that we have had. And I think SERA's kind of a strong kind of like power behind this to make it around.
And I think there's so much, we need to keep that work going, and we need to keep thinking about how we thinking about who's coming to SERA, who the conference is, who's involved, and keeping that diversity front and centre. I think that's really important.
Yes. And then the question is, what are your top 3 words to SERA, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year? 3 words?
The top 3 words I would describe SERA, is that?
Like celebrating, if you think we are celebrating SERA, what are the 3 words coming to your mind? It could be your feelings, it could be like how you would describe SERA, or anything come to your mind when we talk about SERA 50.
Okay, so I would say that networking. I think the networking opportunities it's offered to many people over time, and I think you can see that in the 50th celebrations is really special, that the networks that people have built up. So we've got the SERA networks, we've got that sense of people connecting and networking, and that's what the focus of SERA has been. It might be seen as 2 words, but this is actually a person. It makes me think about Estelle Brizard. And that award is so important to SERA, and each year Aileen Kennedy reminds us of Estelle and her work and her life, and it's so important, and it really highlights the importance of supporting our early career researchers and the contributions that they are making to the educational research landscape. So networking, Estelle Brizard, and maybe it's like, is it happy birthday? Like it's a happy, it's a happy context to be in. I always look forward to a SERA conference, and yeah, it's I think, yeah, well done to SERA for 50 years for keeping that going. Here's to the next.
Here's to the next 50 years. Yes. So, and the final question for SERA 50 is, what would you like to see in the future of SERA and SERA people?
I think I would like to see the continuation of the professional dialogue that we've encouraged through the conference, through the networks, through events. I'd like to see that to continue. I think the conference really seems to be growing in strength and growing in interest in numbers each year. And I think a real strength of the conference is the range of opportunities that we offer people to share their work. Yeah. I think the roundtables, the workshops, the different formats are so important. And actually, thinking about a conference I'm going to shortly, the papers are the time frame is really limited, and there's not the discussion. If I'm going to a conference, I want to really engage in dialogue, and I feel like I do get that opportunity at SERA. So yes. I think continuing with that conference and that encouraging that professional dialogue is going to be really important for the future of SERA. I think there's some challenges in looking at how we continue to have to see our events and interest in the work that we're doing. So I think that's something that we still need to consider, is how do we support and encourage that membership, and think about how we
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nicola.
That's okay. Thanks, Hermione.